occupies a special place in our literary canon. These stories serve a myriad purposes. For those afflicted, they soothe, providing some sort of catharsis and solace. For those caregiving, they teach, providing knowledge and understanding. For those grieving, they heal, providing a way to eulogize and the possibility of peace. This evening, we offer you a series of poems from Marie House's powerful collection, What the Living Do, a collection she dedicates to her brother Johnny, who died of AIDS.
For 3 days. For 3 days now, I've been trying to think of another word for gratitude, because my brother could have died and didn't. Because for a week, we stood in the intensive care unit trying not to imagine how it would be then, afterwards. My youngest brother, Andy, said, "This is so weird. I don't know if I'll be talking with John today or buying a pair of pants for his funeral." And I hated him for saying it because it was true and seemed to tilt it. Because I had been writing his elegy in my head during the 7-hour drive there, and trying not to. Thinking meant not thinking. It meant imagining my brother surrounded by light, like Schrodinger's cat that would be dead if you looked and might live if you didn't. And then it got better, and then it got worse. And it's a story now. He came back. And I did by that time imagine him dead. And I did begin to write the other story, how the crowd in the stifling church snapped to a tearful attention, how my brother lived again for a few minutes through me. And although I know I couldn't help it, because fear has its own language and its own story, because even grief provides a living remedy, I can't help but think of that woman who said to him, whom she thought was her savior, "If thou hadst been here, my brother had not died," how she might have practiced her speech, and how she too might have stood trembling, unable to meet the eyes of the dear familiar figure that stumbled from the cave, when the compassionate fist of God opened and crushed her with gratitude and shame.
Just now. My brother opens his eyes when he hears the door click open downstairs and Joe's steps walking up past the meowing cat, and the second click of the upstairs door, and then he lifts his face so Joe can kiss him. Joe has brought armfuls of broken magnolia branches in full blossom, and he putters in the kitchen looking for a big jar to put them in, and finds it. And now they tower in the living room, white and sweet, where John can see them if he leans out from his bed, which he can't do just now. And now Joe is cleaning. "What a mess you've left me," he says. And John is smiling, almost asleep again.
Cain. Cain. He rose on the surface of it like the layers of water on top of a wave that won't break. You've seen those swells, cold and moving, like something breathing you can't see, collecting and collecting until it seems uncontainable, heaving on, rising and growing bigger. When it got very bad, he'd say, "Tell me a story." And after an hour or so, he'd say, "We got through that one, didn't we?" Until a day came when he said, "Marie, you know how you've been waiting for that big pain to come? I think it's here. I think this is it. I think it's been here all along." And he did take the morphine, and he died the next week.
Faulkner. During the last 2 weeks of John's life, Joe was reading As I Lay Dying for English class. He had to give an oral report, and John kept asking me to read it. "You're an English teacher," he said. "You know what they want." "Okay," I said, but the book drifted from the kitchen to the bedside table to the pillows of the living room couch. "What's it about?" I asked Joe late one night when we were making peanut butter sandwiches. But I didn't understand the story as he told it, the good brothers from the bad brothers. Who was the mother's favorite, really? And who was building the coffin, banging the nails? The afternoon John died, I picked it up, waiting for the food from the aunts and the cousins. I tried to read it that night before I fell asleep, and stopped. I don't know what finally happened. Patty smelled of trees. I kept thinking during those days and nights of the wake and the funeral. But that was another book, wasn't it? That was the idiot brother talking.
The grave. The first summer, I lay on the grass above it as if it were a narrow bed, just my size, and lying on the ground above my brother's body like a log floating on lake water above its own shadow. During the first winter, I drove there one afternoon after Tom and Andy and Beth and Dora and Bahia had been there, because when I stepped out of the car, their footprints marked the snowy lawn, the men's big boots, the women's smaller ones, and Bahia's little boot prints, as big as my hand, looping and falling down into a snow angel next to his grave, then another messy angel on it, and a grave or two away, another one, and the little blotch where she got up and brushed herself off. For some crazy reason, I was wearing black high-heeled shoes in the snow, and walking back to the car, they made ovals and dots, fat exclamation marks, walking inside the steps of my brothers and sisters. One November, years later, I went there with Andy, who was, by then, as old as John was when he died. And we lay on the frozen ground, I using my scarf as a pillow on John's grave, and Andy on top of our father's grave, one grave away. And we talked like that for a little while, companionably, like an old couple talking in bed, our eyes closed against the sunlight. And when I cried, Andy didn't seem to wish me to stop, and that was a kind of happiness. Lying there with my living brother, talking about our family. The ground was cold. Eventually, the chill crept through our coats and jeans, and we scuffled up. Andy reached down to give me his hand, and then it was over. We walked together back to the car and away from them.
What the living do. Johnny, the kitchen sink has been clogged for days. Some utensil probably fell down there. And the Drano won't work, but smells dangerous. And the crusty dishes have piled up, waiting for the plumber I still haven't called. This is the everyday we spoke of. It's winter again. The sky's a deep, headstrong blue, and the sunlight pours through the open living room windows because the heat's on too high in here, and I can't turn it off. For weeks now, driving or dropping a bag of groceries in the street, the bag breaking, I've been thinking, this is what the living do. And yesterday, hurrying along those wobbly bricks in the Cambridge sidewalk, spilling coffee down my wrist and sleeve, I thought it again, and again later, when buying a hairbrush. This is it. Parking, slamming the car door shut in the cold. What you called that yearning. I thought it again, what you finally gave up. We want the spring to come and the winter to pass. We want whoever to call or not call, a letter, a kiss. We want more and then more of it. But there are moments walking when I catch a glimpse of myself in the window glass, say the window of the corner video store, and I'm gripped by a cherishing so deep for my own glowing hair, chapped face, and unbuttoned coat that I'm speechless. I am living. I remember you.